Good morning. Welcome to the CSIR International Convention Center. My name is Morgan Mahlangu. For hygiene purposes, please do not change seat for the duration of the meeting. Sanitizing stations located in the foyer and all around the building. In the unlikely event of an emergency, an alarm will sound throughout the building. Trained responders will give instructions on evacuation. Stay calm, take only belongings that you can carry. Emergency procedure, walk in an orderly manner. Do not run. Responders will lead us to an emergency exit, then to the assembly point. Please observe 1 meter from other delegates and staff. General information, restrooms are available throughout the building. Please look out for signages. As this is a public building, please do not leave your valuables unattended. Wi-Fi information, free wireless internet access is available throughout the building. Select free CSIR ICC on your device and no password is required. I thank you. Enjoy your time at the CSIR Convention Center.
Thank you very much. Good morning again. So my name is Rihanna Mohammed. Very pleased to be with you this morning. I think this is our first in-person media briefing since the onset of the pandemic. So I'm very happy to host all of you here. Warm welcome to members of the media, our stakeholders, our CSIR colleagues, as well as those joining us online. So we are at the tail end of Women's Month. So this year's theme for Women's Month is Generation Equality, Realizing Women's Rights for an Equal Future. Now, the concept of generation equality is obviously linked to the global effort of achieving gender equality by the year 2030. So what does this mean for the CSIR? For the CSIR specifically, and from our perspective, it is about increasing the representation by women in selected STEM careers. And we are very honored this morning. We've taken 4 beautiful, very talented women out of their labs, out of their offices, to come and showcase how the CSIR is demonstrating achieving gender equality by the year 2030. So our theme for this morning is around female researchers showcasing innovative solutions to respond to health and nutritional challenges in South Africa. So our program for today is quite packed. Our first speaker is Dr. Nomusa Dlamini, Acting Research Group Leader in the CSIR's Food Safety Program. Dr. Dlamini will be speaking about food safety and developing safe and nutritious food products. Our second speaker is Ms. Lara Kotze-Jacobs from the BIDC, who will be speaking about some of the work that the CSIR is doing in the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center. Then we've also got Dr. Patience Mtunzi-Kufa, who will be speaking about an innovative smartphone biosensing for point-of-care application. And finally, Dr. Batabile Ramalapa, Senior Researcher within the CSIR, speaking about advanced delivery systems as a response to health challenges in underserved communities. Ladies and gentlemen, our program is very packed this morning, so I'm going to invite the first speaker, and thereafter I'm going to ask that the next speaker follows, so it leaves us with enough time to go through a discussion and a Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna, for that introduction, and thank you everyone for being here today, and good morning and welcome to CSIR. I'm presenting on food safety and developing safe and nutritious foods. Maybe as a start, or this is the outline of my presentation, I'll just briefly talk about myself, my research activities, how we go about developing nutritious food products, and how we improve food safety and quality, and the research we do at CSIR. In terms of myself, that's the most difficult. My journey began a long time ago. I can say mostly at high school when I started developing interest in science subjects and how my subjects could then have impact. And over the years, I've been developing towards that. And now I've finally achieved a point where I think my science combines both knowledge and impact. So I've got a master's in biological sciences and biochemistry. Then I did a BSc in biological science and biochemistry, a master's in food science, then a PhD in food science and technology. And I've got 10 years research in 10 years as an academic, lecturing at university, as well as doing a little bit of research. But I went into full-time research 14 years ago when I joined the CSIR. So that's where I see most of my impact taking place. But lecturing is also a very impactful area because then you bring on future scientists and talent. In terms of my talk, nutrition, or rather hunger, is one of the main causes of nutritional deficiencies in the world. And if you're going to look at the world population, you'll find that about 800 million people go to bed hungry. It is 1 in 9. So sitting in this room, 1 in 9 people are actually going to bed hungry. And poverty is cited as one of the causes of hunger. And I'm happy to say that today that some of my research that I do actually will help alleviate poverty. And food security is one of the key aspects that the United Nations also talks about in terms of provision of nutritious foods, safe foods, that people then can afford to eat. And of course, nutrition also follows another dimension where nutrition is just provision of nutrition that basically is related to improved infant nutrition, especially maternal health, because then we affect the nutritious, the health of the child. And also it helps lower risk of communal diseases. So our research basically aims to provide those nutritious food products. As a start, we'll talk about the development of nutritious food products. We developed a product as researchers working with communities where we developed a Nutri-Drink, which was formulated using local indigenous plants and locally produced. We worked, initially we formulated it at CSIR, and then we went into the communities who were trained on how to process these into a Nutri-Drink powder. And then, of course, the science was that we had to scientifically validate if we have all the nutrients and if the impact that we were looking for was realized. So the product was given to school children. We had all the ethics approval that was needed through CSIR, working with the VAL, Department of Health, Department of Education were also involved. And we found that actually the product, the Nutri-Drink, improved the health of the children, especially with specific indicators such as iron. We know iron deficiency is one of the key deficiency nutrients in society. And also the children also grew very well, and also they became interested in school. We've also worked with small and medium-scale enterprises. We know that the small and medium-scale enterprises are our major job creators. They create jobs because they employ up-and-coming community members and also training. In our work, we've worked. I'll just highlight two community projects that we've worked with. My colleague Lara will talk about more, because we work together with the Bidc in our projects. But in the work that I do, we do most of the scientific validation, most of the formulation, most of the process development. Like we've worked with Setong teas, herbal teas, which is a rural-based SMME in Limpopo, where now we are at a point where a facility is actually going up. Their product is now in the market. It has been tested. It has been validated. We can make some claims about the product. We've also worked on a product with Imbali Agri, who's also a female entrepreneur As you can see here in the picture, she developed canned products. We worked through the processing to optimize the safety of the product, even the stability of the product. And the product is also ready to go onto the market. So we trained, we do a lot of technology transfer in our research as well, in addition to doing scientific studies, chemical studies. In my research on ensuring food safety and quality, we know that there is no food security, there's no nutrition if the food is not safe. If you're going to eat a food and it's going to make you sick, then it's not a food product, it's not a health product, it will affect your health. So in food safety, basically, how do you define food safety? It's just the handling, storing, and processing of food such that it will not cause an infection or disease of any kind. Causing disease, we know there are various factors that can affect our food product, all the way from the farm, the pesticides, the insecticides that are used, even the natural mycotoxins that are produced by the fungi or the mold that contaminate our food product. So in the food safety program, we look at the holistic approach of food safety in terms of taste, color, and quality as well. So there are several key drivers of food safety that have been identified. Most of them is rise in foodborne diseases, testing of our food, the fact that if a food is deemed not fit for consumption, we know that we have tests that can be done. Also, those are the advances in food technology. The globalization of the food supply, where food poisoning or a food safety issue can arise in one part of the world, but we know that food travels very fast. There's also international food regulations that govern how our food products are tested when they travel from country to country. I know recently there's been an issue of our citrus fruits being imported into the EU, where there are concerns. It's not a food safety issue, but it could relate to a food safety issue where they said it has to be held for some weeks at a certain temperature. So food safety is a key. There are certain key food safety drivers. We have a food safety value chain. I think I've spoken about what food safety, where it starts. It starts in the farm, agricultural production, when we harvest, when we store our produce, whether it's maize and wheat, when we process, they're all food safety measures. And until we get to having our products, which I think I touched on when I looked at the SMMEs as well as marketing and up to the consumer. So the consumers must also be educated in food safety. In terms of some of the research that we have, we're working with on a project where we're looking at testing for mycotoxins in food products. We're also trying to make our test accessible to various processors who are in remote areas, in the rural areas, who are far away from labs. So we're also working with an SMME who is actually putting on the market a mobile lab. The mobile lab will be ISO 17025, which means that their results will be accredited and they can be recognized nationally and internationally. We're also working at accrediting our labs at CSIR so that it can support the mobile lab. We know that the mobile lab will be able to do tests up to a certain extent. And for us to have some of these tests, we're also developing on-site testing devices, the lateral flow test kit, which will test for mycotoxins. I think I've already spoken about the contamination, the growth of the molds. Like as you can see, the peanuts with molds growing there. The key aspect of the moldy peanuts is the presence of the mycotoxin aflatoxin B1, which is one of the most toxic aflatoxins or mycotoxins that causes that may lead to liver cancer in humans. We have also mentioned that we're developing a health testing kit for detection of mycotoxin. Why we are zeroing down on mycotoxin is because mycotoxin, when food is contaminated with mycotoxin, it won't taste bad. It will taste normal, but the health implications are huge. Because then you see children suffering from malnutrition. You start seeing emergence of certain diseases, like I mentioned aflatoxin and liver cancer. Another mycotoxin is fumonisin, which leads to throat cancer, or rather oesophageal cancer. So in addition to producing the kit, we're also producing the standards, which will be made available to the labs. Currently, the standards are being imported at a cost, but if we produce them locally, then it means we are reducing that cost. And for this mycotoxin project, we got funding from the Technology Innovation Agency that is sponsoring the whole value chain from the production of the mycotoxin to prepare the standards for us to prepare the kit, to the assembling of the kit. In addition, when you have such a kit, which is a lateral flow test kit, you also need antibodies that help you detect this mycotoxin. So we are also doing research in that area. And to conclude, this is the work that we do. And the main impact, as I've mentioned, is to commercialize products, is to transfer technologies to communities, also leading to job creation and overall poverty alleviation. If we alleviate poverty, then we improve the health of the society because we improve food, we reduce hunger and improve food intake. And by developing nutritious foods, we're making sure that we are putting into the market foods that are nutritious, that are safe, that have been tested. And thank you.
Good morning, colleagues and members of the media that are present. This morning, I'd like to tell you about the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center. I'm a program manager at the center, and I'll start with an introduction to myself, as we were instructed to do. I'm a qualified chemical engineer. I did that at Stellenbosch in 2006, after which I did a master's with a focus on bioprocessing, and that's where I came into doing biomanufacturing. I started at CSIR in 2007, and my first exposure to entrepreneurship was because we had entered a competition, the GAP Bio competition that was facilitated by the Technology Innovation Agency at the time. And it made me very aware about the challenges that entrepreneurs face when it comes to technology and commercialization. I then joined the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center when it started in 2014, and since 2018 I've been a program manager that works specifically in programs that relate to the work we do with small enterprises. So I'm going to take you through an introduction of what we do at the BIDC. I'm going to tell you about our offering, and then I'll conclude with a few case studies of enterprises that we have supported. The main objective of the BIDC, the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center, is to grow the biomanufacturing sector in South Africa. We facilitate the translation of research and development to market-ready products and technologies. And what this really means is that we make the skills of our scientists and engineers, as well as our facilities, available to the vast amount of SMMEs out there that have challenges in accessing the facilities and the skills we have on offer. We also focus on doing workforce development, so taking interns, recent graduates from the universities, and teaching them how biomanufacturing works and how you develop processes and products that are market ready. In doing this, we've had many partners. One of them, or two of them, have been the Jobs Fund in the early stages of our program, as well as more recently, the Department of Science and Innovation has also supported our work. From 2014 until now, we've supported about 38 enterprises with product and process development. We've also developed around 119 products that we've transferred to these SMMEs to go and take to the market. We've supported more than 120 interns that have subsequently gone into industry, whether they've gotten permanent or temporary jobs, or maybe they've been so inspired that they went back and did some more research and got further qualifications. And we've also signed licenses. I see that item is missing there. We've signed about 28 licenses for these technologies with SMMEs, and that allows them to commercialize the products that we've developed for them. So what is the BIDC offering? Of course, the main offering is the technical support we provide. And that support, what we do is product and process development. We do packaging, we do scale-up and piloting, we do technology validation, and we do the techno-economics and the costing of those products to make sure that they are actually viable in the market. And then we license these technologies to entrepreneurs and to small businesses to commercialize. But one of the big things, or two of the big things that enterprises face in our country is access to market and access to funding. And the CSIR has a long history in doing this type of work and also in commercializing our own products. And therefore, we can provide SMMEs with access to our networks. So when it comes to having access to funding, we have pitching events with some of the funders that support us and that has also come to us to ask us, do we have a pipeline of enterprises that can be supported? We also give access for trained staff. A lot of the work we do with interns work out that we can support the CETAs, the National Research Foundation, the DST, and also in-service trainees, and further grow the available staff for enterprises and companies in South Africa. When it comes to access to manufacturing, we are aware of the contract manufacturers that enterprises can use, and we introduce them and put them into contact so that products can be made at the correct standards that are out there in the market. And then in terms of access to market, we are networked into a lot of programs that assist enterprises with getting to market, making sure they meet all the regulatory requirements. In the next portion of the presentation, I'd like to tell you about some of the work we have done with SMMEs specifically. And none of this work would be possible without a large team comprising out of the colleagues in our agro-processing and bioprocessing research groups who do the actual work around developing these products and technologies. The first example I'm going to speak about is a company called Sabona Mycelium, and they are up here in Gauteng. Mycelium-based production is really the use of mushrooms to extract nutritious compounds from mushrooms. And this can be done in two ways. You can either grow a mushroom on a solid support and you'll get a fruiting body, which is the mushrooms we can all buy in retail stores. Or what you can do is to grow in a bioreactor mycelium that can be harvested and nutritional compounds can be extracted from the mycelium. The benefits of submerged cultures in a bioreactor is that you can control the culture conditions, and that makes the growth of the mycelium more reliable. And one can more easily exclude contaminants, which are important in the food and nutrition industry. The mushrooms, if you grow them normally, you would have fruiting bodies that you then process and extract nutrients from. With the BIDC support, what we did for Sabona was to grow these mushrooms or mycelia in a 1,000-liter bioreactor and then extract some of the compounds that the companies were interested in. Without the CSIR, the company wouldn't have had access to a 1,000-liter bioreactor, and therefore they wouldn't have been able to validate that this technology could actually be feasible and products that can be produced for it could go to the market. The second example I'd like to mention is Vida Pharmaceuticals. Vida Pharmaceuticals came to the CSIR and they had a request that they have access to a large amount of the baobab fruit from Limpopo and the northern areas of our country, and that they wanted to beneficiate that and create products from it. The baobab fruit is very rich in minerals and vitamins, fiber and calcium, so it was a natural addition to make to food, to add it to porridges and snack bars, which is what the company was interested in the CSIR developing for them. The third example I'd like to mention is Visa Enterprise, and we even have the entrepreneur here today with us, Mrs. Isa Twala. Okra is well known for nutrient properties, especially also vitamin C. When blended into a beverage, as an example of how it can be used, it's a vibrant green color and it looks very healthy. But when you try and scale up the production of a beverage like this, you run into many challenges, such that the green deteriorates to a more brown color and the viscosity of the beverage is not nice. And that is what Aza approached us to develop for her and improve on. And what we did for her was to develop this gumbo shake, which has a nice taste. It's naturally preserved and now has the shelf life required to have it in the stores to which she is currently supplying the products to. It is in this way that the CSIR, through the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center, supports SMMEs as part of alleviating the challenges we have with nutrition in the country, but also the support of SMMEs to create businesses and also bring these technologies to commercialization. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, both people in the room and those that are watching virtually. A special acknowledgement to the members of the media. My name is Patience Mtunzi Gufa, and this morning I'd like to take you through some of the work that we do in the biophotonics facility that I lead here within the CSIR. Before that, I was asked by Kumisa and David to share a bit about myself, so I will give a slide on my background. Okay, so I love pictures because I believe they tell a very good story. So you will hear that my message is basically based on pictures. So right at the corner there, I don't know if this has a pointer, but this was me when I was 6 months. My mother tells me in 1975, when she found out that she was expecting me, my dad said he didn't want anything to do with me. So mom came very close to terminating the pregnancy because she was like, with all the difficulties, I don't think I can have a child. But fast forward, I was brought up by my grandmother. I went to public schools in Soweto. So I did both my primary and secondary schooling in Soweto. When I finished in 1994, I went to the Rand Afrikaans University, not UJ, Rao. So I would be the only Black person in my classes taught in Afrikaans. Some of my study guides were in Afrikaans. I still have some of my Afrikaans textbooks. And I was studying sciences, so you can imagine how difficult that was. But fast forward, I graduated with my master's in medical biochemistry at Rao I think it was in 2002. And then I joined the NICD for a bit, but then I then migrated to CSIR in 2004. And my journey within the CSIR has been nothing but a journey of growth, a journey of acquiring wisdom. And I'm really grateful to be part of the CSIR. In 2006, they took me to do a PhD in physics at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. And then I came back to work in the biophotonics facility. And after that, really, I've had quite a number of awards and acknowledgements. I've got the Order of Mapungube from then President Jacob Zuma in 2012. And then I became a TED fellow. I wore my Zulu regalia to go present in the TED studio in 2016. Yeah. And because of all the work that I do for the community, in 2016, the Department of Basic Education had a whole block of science named after me at a school. So this is at a wall at a school of specialization in Soweto. And I do a lot of skills transfer as part of my job within the CSIR. I've got late last year, 2 of my PhDs graduated. And my team and I we go to international conferences. And I must say, it's been a small team. We are bigger now, but it's been a small team since recently, but a team of award-winning scientists. You can see here in 2017, I think we individually got awards within the National Laser Center then. And aside from all of that, really, I'm the greatest joy of my life is I'm a wife to a loving, very warm husband, supportive to the core. My mom had just 2 children, my sister and I. My sister is now late. And after her passing in 2018, August, my life has never really been the same. I miss her to bits. When she passed on my twins, I've got twin boys. They were only about 3 months. And you can see that when I was 6 months, the picture was very different from the picture for my children. When they were 6 months, they are belonging to a full family, and family means a lot to me. So that's me. All right, so let's get to the business of today. So today I would like to just go through the overview of my biophotonics research work. I will talk about problem statements. Why are we doing the work that we do? I'll outline a bit of technology. I'll talk about the outcomes, and then I'll give a bit of a conclusion. Oops, sorry. So in biophotonics, it's a multidisciplinary field. So we are very unique, both locally and globally, in the sense that we are playing in different spaces. So we are working on photonics, but we've got a very good understanding of microorganisms. And we are also putting our foot in the space of making and designing medical devices. So that makes us very unique, both globally and locally. And that's why we win a lot of awards when we go and present overseas. So why are we doing the work that we do? As part of my problem statement, I put this picture out. I did say I love pictures because for me, they make storytelling very easy. If you look at this is a beautifully designed lab. It's got electricity and water, a fully trained lab technician. There's reagents and equipment. So one would ask, why is patient saying this is a problem? It becomes a problem when you are facing an area like this. This is a remote area in KwaZulu-Natal, and they are attending a clinic. And for these guys, unlike for us in the cities where, when you are sick, the doctor gives you a note to go to a lab. It could be an Ampath, a Fairmark, or it could be, any of those labs. And they would take your blood at Lancet, and then they would go and analyze it in the lab I've just shown now. For these guys, the story is totally different. And then it led us to a point where my team and I sat and said, what can we do to make life easier for people in such settings to get diagnostics done easy? So we then came up with an idea of making point-of-care diagnostic tools. So we've made a cell phone-based diagnostic. It is photonics-based. It's got novel software and hardware that's built on a phone. So basically, a patient can take any of the bodily fluids and put on this phone, get an image of what the results look like. We've built an app that will then send the results into a cloud, which will take the results to a doctor who will then diagnose and tell the patient what to do further. That's one of the projects that we are currently working on. Another problem we identified, which we thought, no, this cannot be happening, was that of counterfeit medications. So if you look, according to the WHO, 1 in 10 medical products in developing countries is a substandard or is falsified. This is a problem because patients are taking medication, but they're not really getting healed. So we thought, what can we do as a team to actually fight this? You can see in this picture, I mean, pretty much like what Nomusa was talking about when it comes to food safety and preserving food. When it comes to medication, if it's not stored properly, it also loses quality. This is a market in Abidjan, and you can see this lady is displaying all sorts of different kinds of medication. You ask yourself, what kind of quality comes out of this kind of medication? And remember as well, in Africa, in most of the countries, when the medication comes into the country as imports, it doesn't get quarantined and screened for checking if there's the pharmaceutical or rather the active pharmaceutical ingredient in the meds. So it just gets dispatched. It ends up in places like this, and the people are taking medication, but they're not really getting healed. The problem of fake drugs is really big. This is a Chinese officer. You can see he's walking through a number of medicines that were seized in Beijing. So this is a big problem. So what we sat and thought of doing, my team and I, was we can use photonics to actually screen drugs and can be able to tell you exactly what's in a drug. So we are building currently a tool that is going to be put in entry ports in the country. So as medicines comes into the country, it will be screened. As an example, we screened different types of disprin. So we just bought different disprin off of the shelves and we screened it. And we can tell you exactly what the composition of the tablet is using spectroscopy. So we know that we've tested the concept and it works. In conclusion, I have just shown you, there's actually a demo outside as well, how we have actually made, we've miniaturized the lab from a big laboratory with equipment, water and everything, to just a smartphone device. And the particular device that we have made is multi-screening in the sense that it can test for HIV, TB, COVID, as well as non-communicable diseases. We are busy preparing it for commercialization. It should be ready in the coming few months. And in addition to that, I've just shown you how we can use spectroscopy as a real-time drug screening method for different medication in order to prevent the issue of counterfeit or substandard medication. So with that, I'd like to thank you. I think in my next slide, I would also like to thank our partners, as well as the Department of Science and Technology, or Science and Innovation, sorry, for funding us. Without them, I mean, and the CSIR, the support we get from the CSIR, it wouldn't be possible to do the work that we have done. Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to the media that has graced us with their presence this morning. Let me first start by saying what an honor and a privilege it is to have shared a stage with the leading women of CSIR. Lara was just saying this morning that she saw me come into the CSIR as a baby, and the baby has now grown. My presentation will be on the advanced delivery systems that we are developing as a response to health challenges in underserved communities. And I will take you through the challenges that we've had, the historical challenges that we've had in diseases, the non-communicable threats that we have currently in South Africa, the challenges we have in the treatment management of those non-communicable threats, and what we are proposing as a response to those threats, and the solution that we are proposing for the treatment management, and what our outputs have been, and what outcomes we expect from those outputs. So before I start off with my presentation, let me introduce you to the young girl that's standing before you, or young woman now. So I am Dr. B, as my colleagues call me. And I started off at the CSIR as an intern, and I am now a senior researcher with the Advanced Functional Materials Group. I am a project lead on the Biotherapeutics Delivery Platform. And through the networks and opportunities that have been offered by the CSIR, I was able to study for 2 PhDs, one in pharmaceutical sciences from the University of Angers in France, and one in chemical sciences from the University of Liège in Belgium. And all the professional roles that I hold, my passion is really in human capital development and in the promotion of women to access of opportunities in the STEM fields. So I'm now currently serve as one of the chairpersons for the CSIR Employment Equity and Skills Development Committee. And I work a lot with the National Research Foundation and the Department of Science and Innovation. I forgot to add the Medical Research Council as well, where I work on HCD programs, including South African and Euro collaborative programs. But of all of these roles that I play in my life, the most important role for me is being a mother to my 2 sons. One of them is 3 and one will be turning 1 soon. And I think anybody who has toddlers, I feel for you with 2 at the same age. It's very chaotic to raise toddlers. But over and above that, I think the one thing that makes me wake up with passion and energy in the morning is the fact that I know that in some little way, I'm contributing towards developing drug treatments that are suitable and affordable for my people. So historically, we've had in about a decade or 2 where communicable and non-communicable diseases were classed based on demographic, based on geographic locations. And the infectious diseases, I think it's cut off but infectious diseases like tuberculosis, HIV, malaria, hepatitis B, and a lot of the infections that are caused by bacteria and viruses were seen as a problem just for Africa and the East and the Middle East and Asia. And they've actually been labeled as poverty-related diseases. And the lifestyle diseases or diseases that are for high-income people, which are the non-communicable diseases, were seen as prevalent in Europe and the North America. But now we fast forward to 2022 and we get a global pandemic, COVID-19, which is the first global pandemic of the information age. And it showed us just how global a health crisis can become. So, and then we see that there really is a need for global effort for us to put all our hands on deck in order to fight this global crisis. And with us as South Africa, we realized that there's a need to build capability in order for us to be able to solve the health challenges that we have as a country and that we see globally. And now we are faced with a lot of non-communicable threats in Africa, which we were not really focusing on finding solutions to. And diabetes and breast cancer, we've seen are the scourge that has been plaguing our communities for quite a while now. And, diabetes is currently the 9th biggest killer globally in reports from the WHO in 2021. And specifically in South Africa, it has surpassed HIV as the 2nd killer in the country. And just in June, the statistics that were revealed in June 2022 showed that there has been 90,000 people that have died of diabetes just this year. And if you want to just get a feel of what that number means, 90,000 people is how much people you can fit in Soccer Stadium, which is the largest football stadium in South Africa. And with breast cancer, the story isn't really different because it's now the leading cause of cancer mortality in women in South Africa and globally, actually. Now, the challenges that we have with the treatments that we have for diabetes and breast cancer is that In South Africa, you get a patient compliance of less than 50% on insulin, which is the most successful treatment for diabetes. And there is a very high risk of amputation due to wound infection because, as I said, we also suffer from a lot of bacterial infections in South Africa and Africa. And so we have people who will get in even the slightest infection when you have diabetes can lead to you being amputated because they really can't find any cure for that infection. The challenge with breast cancer, if you look at the states, there's the 3-year survival rate in South Africa is 50%, as opposed to 90% in high-income countries. So we really are at a disadvantage. And the challenges that we have is, one of them is that affordability. About 50% of the people who need the insulin treatment that I've said is the most successful for diabetes do not get it because it's either unaffordable or they just don't have access to it. And with breast cancer treatment, it costs the government, or if you get it in the private sector, which very little people get it in the private sector, it costs about 60,000 Rand per regimen per annum. So if you're taking it for 3 years, that's 600 times 3. And most of the women, unfortunately, do not make it even after those 3 years of taking this expensive treatment. With breast cancer, because of the low survival rate that we have in South Africa, we really try to give the patients chemotherapy to see if they can respond to both the antibody treatment and the chemotherapy. Now, the chemotherapy has very severe side effects. I'm sure you've seen with cancer patients. They are bald. They get a lot of nausea and vomiting. They are fatigued. I mean, some of them end up not taking the chemotherapy because it's making them so sick. With insulin, the mode of administration for insulin is that it's an injectable, and you have to take it every single day. For some patients, it's twice or 3 times a day. Some patients don't even know how to use injections, but they are given the insulin to take home and inject themselves. So we see why patient compliance is so low. Now, one of the other challenges that we have specifically for underserved communities is the cold chain logistics that goes with these two treatments. So insulin and trastuzumab, which is the antibody for breast cancer treatment, are both biotherapies. And like the COVID-19 vaccine that we were using, they require ultra cold chain logistics to be transported, to be kept in the fridge. And imagine now with insulin, patients have to take it home. So it does not only need to be at ultra cold chain at the hospital, but even to the people that are taking it home, who sometimes don't even have these fridges. It costs us a lot to transport it because, as Dr. Patience and Dr. Nomusa have said, we need to import most of the medication that we take in South Africa. So importing something at these low temperatures. And then, as she has mentioned, Dr. Patience mentioned, and then it comes into the country, and sometimes there isn't even quality checks to check if what we're getting in the country will be effective for our people. So we really have a lot of challenges with treatments that we are getting from outside of the country. So at the CSIR, as the drug delivery platform, we have been working on advanced drug delivery systems that are based on polymeric systems. And we've been doing it for infectious diseases like TB, malaria, and HIV. And we are even close to licensing the system that we've developed for malaria to help malaria patients with the challenges that are having with their treatment. And these are mainly to actually enhance the drug efficacy through personalized medicine that is developed for Africans and shortening the dose and the dose frequency of the medication. We want to shorten the human clinical trials because we're working on reformulating existing drugs. And because there's so much that is known of the drug, the tests that you need to do are not that lengthy. And so we can formulate drugs, or we can commercialize drugs in less than half the conventional timeline, because it takes about 10 to 15 years to actually develop a new drug in terms of the science that you need to do and all the tests that need to be done, including the human clinical trials. And really also, if you lengthen human clinical trials, it means that you're using less humans to do your tests, which is really an advantage. And then we want to essentially just reduce the overall treatment costs because we want to make it affordable for developing countries. So if you see, as I've said, it will take actually to be able to develop better and affordable medicine, a timeline of 3 to 5 years. So this is how the delivery system would work. It's a polymeric system, and in the system, you can put in your drug of choice or either conjugate it onto the system, but really just to improve its properties. So it's a biodegradable and biocompatible system. This is important because you want to make sure that it doesn't cause any toxic side effects in the patient. It's a targeted therapy. As I've mentioned, chemotherapy is a systematic therapy. What that means is that once you put it into your body, you have no control over where it goes into the body. And that's why it affects other organs. And people end up thinking they are getting actually much sicker than what the cancer is making them when they take the system. So if you have a targeted therapy that you know is going to go only where the disease is, then you know that there's reduced toxicity. And that's where you can actually get more patient compliance because it doesn't make the patient sick. We can enhance the resident time of the drug in the body using the system. A lot of the time, the reason why people need to take such high doses of the drug is because not all of the drug goes where it's supposed to go. And some of it is getting rid, the body is getting rid of it so quickly because it sees it as a foreign substance. So with us, the body, we actually mimic the drug, that the drug can be seen as something that's that looks like something that's part of the body. And so it doesn't get rid of it quickly. And so it has a lot of time to do the work that it needs to do. So you can take less of the drug and you don't have to take it as frequently as you would if it were just a conventional drug. It's important for us to protect the bioactives like insulin and trastuzumab against environmental factors. And for us as Africa and South Africa, this helps because you can then have these therapies stable at median temperature, which means that you don't have to keep them at ultra cold chain environment. So what we have done so far, we've been able to develop effective delivery systems for biotherapies, which is the insulin and the trastuzumab that I talked about. And what this essentially means is that we've been able to protect the actives against harsh environments. And the expected outcome of this is that we'd be able to transport, store, and use the drugs in the African climatic conditions. This also ties with what Dr. Patience has said, that you get medication, you see it in the street in Africa, and you don't know whether it's still active because it's not meant to stay in that kind of climate. So if we have drugs, although not really meant to be sold in the street, but it's a plus if we can have them be able to stay stable and be effective in that climate. We've developed delivery systems or materials with antimicrobial activity. This is important because, as I said, when someone gets an infection, when they have diabetes, really the next step is that they know 3, 4, 6 months down the line, they're going to be amputated because there really isn't something that is that effective for someone who gets an infection on their leg when they have diabetes. And with these materials, what we're hoping is that we'll have better management of bacterial wound infections for diabetic patients and be able to have them not be amputated. And so we are doing research that is patient-centered in these delivery systems that we are making. And it can be affordable and accessible to African patients. Of course, this research could never be done by myself alone. I would never finish in 3 to 5 years if I was doing it alone. So I'm very thankful to the Center for Nanostructures and Advanced Functional Materials, which work on these systems. And we partner up with the Biomanufacturing Technology Demonstration Group. And we are very thankful to the Department of Science and Innovation, who constantly support the work that we do. I have some of my students from the University of Johannesburg, very eager and energetic, sitting right at the back, and they also do some of the work. They are the reason why our projects have been so successful. And we have our partner also here. The CEO has graced us with his presence, Dr. Sello Ratete. And the partner is so important because when we develop these drugs, we want to see them at the bedside of the patients. And when we have a commercial partner, they are the ones that will ensure that the drugs that we are developing will end up in the hands of the patient who is so centric to what we are doing here. Thank you.
That was very inspiring. All of the goosebumps were doing its most. Thank you very much. But your work is not done yet. I'm going to invite questions from the floor first in the room before we move to our online audience. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, any questions?
It's a general question that applies to various innovations. We have to kind of do a news story to cover some of these, and they look very interesting. Would it be possible to get some support media, in other words, photographs or video footage or anything that we can build it into a story so that we can put out?
We have a lot and we're happy to share.
Thank you. That's my only question. Anybody else?
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Sello Ratete. I've got more of a comment rather than question. I'm very much overwhelmed by what I'm seeing today because I strongly believe that women are real powerful agents of change. And the industry that I'm in is a pharmaceutical industry where we found a lot of challenges that especially the upcoming pharmaceutical companies are not having the opportunity to do what they need to do. But the leadership of CSIR has given us the opportunity that women should lead the research in the industry, and we are part of this. And what makes me more compassionate about it is that the diseases that we're talking about, the diseases that diabetes and cancer, are diseases that kills people. My mother was amputated while I was a doctor. I looked at her for almost a month because of septicemia. And then when I left practicing medicine, I told myself that I'm going to look and see how could we cure diabetes. And then it is so clear that Dr. Vatabile has given us a direction. She gave the solution in terms most doctors and researchers have never really found out that most of our people are dying because of septicemia. Just a small wound creates such infection that it goes throughout the body and you're either amputated or you die of septicemia. So these delivery systems are going to help our people, not only our people, the poorest of the poor, who are keeping this insulin under the sun, who are not knowing whether the insulin will be effective. I'm talking this because I worked in the rural area as a doctor. I knew what happened. So it is so exciting, and I would like to commend the leadership of CSIR for bringing these women in front of us. If there's no women, there's no leadership. I believe that. I would like to thank you and congratulate you. Please continue doing that. And we as commercialization partners, as people who have got no funds to can do this research, we are ready to work with you. And we are happy that we are given the chance to work with you at the beginning of the research so that when we are going to do what we know better in commercialization, we'll be able to do that with you. I would like to thank you and say, continue leading us.
Thank you. My name is Valentine Sata. I'm also from CSIR, and I would also like to, I share the same sentiment with the doctor here. We are really proud of you ladies for doing such a great work. My question is for Dr. Batabile in regard to diabetes and especially insulin. So I would like to know in terms of release, because the current method is like you have to check the level of your blood glucose and then you'll know how much you need to put in terms of insulin. So if you develop a drug, how much of insulin do you say it needs to go to your body? Or do you develop different dosages of drug? Because if you give a person maybe 50 milligram and then they don't know how much will be released in their body, how do you work around that? So, with cancer, I understand that, okay, it can go to even a targeted location. So I'm not sure how it works in terms of diabetes.
Thank you very much for the question. It actually is a valid question. So the insulin, as I said, we are reformulating the insulin that is currently available and putting into a different delivery system. But what actually happens with the dose is that it will work, like you said, almost the same way as it has been working with the current insulin that is available. So you would need to check the level of glucose that you have in your blood and then dose it according to that. So what happens is that you have what can I say, a drug treatment that has insulin, but not, as I said, it's personalized medicine. So not everyone will take the same dose. The dosage will either be advised to you by the doctor, or as someone who is a diabetic patient and has been taught how to take medication according to your glucose level, then you will work with the doctor to see that specific treatment that we have made, how much of it you would have to take.
Just to add to that, solubility. Insulin is soluble at a very low pH. And then what we are doing now, I believe that they want to make sure that it should also be soluble, not being put under the refrigeration and whatever things. The key issue is that why we have to refrigerate it. It must be, when you inject it into the blood, it must be soluble and be targeted so that it can carry the glucose into the blood system. So now what they are doing, they are seeing the same insulin. They are creating a delivery system that will make it be soluble even at normal room temperatures. That is key to the whole solution to the business. And we will be very proud if that could be achieved. And that will change the whole picture, because people in the rural area, those who don't have fridges, they can still have that same insulin. Because of the delivery system that they created, it could still give the same effect. Unlike now, they get it, they put it in water, and they still have wounds that they cannot treat. But the government is giving them that insulin, but it's not giving the results that is required. Thank you.
Right. Do we have any more questions? It's in the room. Okay, anything online yet? Nothing. All right. This brings us to 11:10. So as some of the speakers have mentioned, there is the medical device outside. There is a small exhibition of the products that the BIDC has developed as well. Please feel free to get footage of that, to get photographs of that. And then our wonderful speakers, thank you very much for honoring this invitation to address the media, the members of the media. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to close here. Thanks, everyone.